This is the second half of the Eskwilax Hour. Today we have Eric Hill from American Indian Movement of Southern California. He took the time to come and share with us the knowledge about the North Dakota Access Pipeline, right?
Yep.
And yeah, we're gonna talk about it, and he's gonna give us more knowledge and exactly what's going on. So I'm gonna take my seat. Thank you guys for being here in the second hour. I was telling Eric that he was recommended by another Facebook friend, from another Facebook friend, you know, because I wasn't aware of this. I mean, just because like the media isn't covering it, that's a big thing that people were mentioning. But aside from that, you know, I was able to get a hold of Eric, and yeah. And Eric, you want to tell us what exactly is going on right now?
Sure. So I'll do the best I can. I haven't been out there yet myself, but I'm hoping to get out there maybe later in November. So currently we have the Dakota Access Pipeline Company trying to set up their oil pipeline through the Dakotas, but it's actually through pretty much all the United States.
Yeah.
The center of the United States, because the oil is actually coming from what's called the Bakken oil fields, which is basically north in the Canadian territories. So what they want is they're looking for an oil access pipeline that goes all the way south through the United States out into the Gulf of Mexico through Texas, and that oil will be basically exported out of the country. Some people are saying to China. And so,
oh, so it's not even for.
It's not even for the United States.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's not
See,
even.
that part. This is the stuff that like we don't know. The ones we living in here, and haven't heard about it. And yeah, I thought it was like for the actual.
No, it's not. And you know, you mentioned earlier about you know, the media blackout basically that's happening. That's, you know, this camp has been there since April.
Exactly.
It's been there since April, and nobody's covered it until now that it's been getting a little bit more violent. The mainstream media, as you probably know, is, you know, that's what sells.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, a lot of these networks have investments made into their companies from these oil companies. So the oil companies actually have their tentacles, their hands in everything. And governments as well, state governments, federal government.
Yeah, that's why, you know, it's not convenient for the media. You mentioned it. It's just how it works.
Right.
It's just money, you know, everything's money.
Everything is money.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
But the good thing is, you know, the protectors, that's, you know, they're still there today, right? Today's
oh, absolutely.
Today's October 28th.
28,
Yes.
Yeah, they're still out there. They're holding the line. I think yesterday what happened was there was a frontline camp that had been established for some time, and the state sent in about, you know, 100 police officers, all in riot gear. Some were even dressed up in military gear.
Yeah.
Going through the camp, tearing it down, arresting people. It was pretty intense.
But this isn't the first time that they're arrested, right? This is like
this is probably the second, third time at least. Yeah, they're constantly trying to pull people out of the camps. They're trying to reduce the camp.
Yeah.
They're trying to scare people away from coming to the camps because they know a lot of people are coming because of the sort of the severity of the issue. And this isn't just an Indian thing, by the way. You know, this affects everybody. So it's not just Native people there. It's mostly Native people there, but you have people from all walks, everywhere. So you got a lot of Chicanos out there. You got, you know, the white folks that live out there. We have Black Lives Matter out there. All kinds of people are out there because they recognize that this oil issue is not just a local problem.
Yeah.
It's actually worldwide. You know, there's companies doing similar things like this, and they've been doing things like this in Central America, South America. Africa. I've known some people from Africa who told me stories about their villages being affected by stuff like this. So it's everywhere. It's just finally starting to hit the United States in a more intense way.
Yeah, and people are finally, you know, realizing that something has to be done.
Absolutely.
I mean, because there was a town next to it
So the main,
There was
so
a
Cannonball. There's Cannonball and there's Bismarck.
Bismarck, I heard
Yeah.
like they rejected it, right?
That's
And
right,
Yeah,
so-
and they were like, okay, yeah.
That's right. So the pipeline was originally going to be built by through Bismarck or
Yeah.
by Bismarck, and Bismarck is predominantly, demographics is mostly white folks.
Yeah.
And those folks said, we don't want this here because they know.
Yeah, they know.
Right?
They know. Exactly.
And so it got rerouted, and they figured, well, we'll just go through or next to the native territory because, who cares about them, right?
Yeah.
But the native people stood up, and they're standing up right now. So, they're not having an easy time getting through, and they won't.
Yeah, and there's people still going out there. And my friend told me there's like buses, that are
Absolutely.
just specifically to go out there and just kind of make your voice heard and make
Yeah.
a stand.
Absolutely. Yeah, they're still going. I think they'll be there for a long time. The winter's coming, so the camp has actually gotten smaller. It's getting
Yeah.
colder, and so a lot of folks from out of state who aren't used to those kinds of conditions are having to leave. But what they're trying to do is winterize the camps that are there and have people ready for the winter to hold that line down. But it's not an easy situation right now.
Yeah, and then there, people donate, right? Donate supplies,
Yes.
donate just locally. I know that we dropped off supplies on a collective that was going up there,
Right.
and I think they already came back, but they did. I believe so. They did their part, and then they went up there,
Okay.
stood there. But yeah, and then through my other friend, he's also he's always like he's collecting supplies. He's sending them up every now and then that somebody goes up there.
Right.
And your friend, right, Raven, Two
Ravens, I believe, is actually he went out there
He's
already.
went up
yeah.
there. He was gonna come on the show,
Yeah.
but he said something happened and he had to go up there
Yeah.
and make
so-
his stand.
That's right. And so he asked me to cover. I myself can't go right now just because my wife is about 6 months pregnant. So
Oh,
I have to
okay.
hold my family down here.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I'm hoping, if things work out, I can get out there as well, because I really want to help out. So, and
Yeah.
even if you can't get up there, there's a lot of things you can do out here.
That was going to be one of my questions.
Yeah.
What can people do just to help voice?
Absolutely. So through our organization, American Indian Movement, Southern California, we've been doing a lot of street rallies. We've been
Yeah.
going out into downtown LA. The last one we did was at MacArthur Park, and that turned out to be really, really
Yeah.
good. Yeah, we were able to shut down about 2 miles of the streets, and I mean hundreds of people were marching there. And then we started at MacArthur Park, came back to MacArthur Park, and there were celebrities, musicians, people talking about the issue. It was a very good issue, very good event, sorry. And we've been doing those for a few months already, and there's gonna be more, so.
Yeah. I mean, it's good because it gets people aware. That is, like you were
Absolutely.
mentioning, it's not just about one thing. It's just it's not about just Native Americans.
That's right.
It's about water.
It's about water, and water is important to everybody.
That's why I noticed a lot of like the online,
Yeah.
social media. They use hashtags.
That's
they're
right.
called water protectors. It's
That's
not
right.
saying Native American
That's right.
protecting their own. It's actually water protecting the water itself.
That's right.
Just there was another pipeline, right, that recently like burst and like nobody's talking about it either. It wasn't near there, but I know that.
There's been quite a few actually that have been burst. I mean, they all leak at some
Yeah.
point. They all leak.
They,
North Dakota, I think, in the past year had about, I want to say, 200 leaks unreported. So these things are constantly happening actually, and Dakota Access Pipeline is not the only environmental issue, or even the only native issue that's out there. You have Apache Stronghold out there in Arizona, I believe, and you have all kinds of issues going on where people are standing up. So.
And this one, no, I try to read as much as possible about it, the issue, and it was the Standing Rock. That's where the That's that the location, right? That's
the reservation.
That's the reservation.
Yeah, that's the reservation.
And it's, I was reading, it says something about the Treaty of 1851 or 50, I believe.
Yeah, so there are, I want to say it's 1851, but
yeah.
But there are treaties that go back prior, quite a long time, that sort of established the sovereign rights of those native people there on that land, and it's quite a bit of land, and it extends past the reservation, and so the reservations are an interesting thing too, because the government a while back decided who is native and who isn't, and you have to have this ID card. There's the BIA is involved, the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So the government kind of determined that, and people who had this identity would basically live in the reservations. However, there are, from my understanding, there are native people in those areas whose family lines date back prior to even reservation negotiations, back into these older treaties.
Yeah.
And some of the locals call them treaty Indians, and those folks are actually entitled to the land that's currently being dug up and things like that out there in the Dakotas. So that's where a lot of the struggle is as well.
And so, like, it actually is not even their property, like the pipeline property, is it? Or
well, so that's where it gets kind of murky. So the question, I guess, to ask is the American system legitimate?
Yeah.
Right, to begin with. So whose land is it? From my perspective, it's all native land.
Yeah.
And all this other stuff came after that fact, And so, but there were a lot of negotiations over time, and treaties were made, concessions were made about where people are going to live and who can own land, who can't. But like I said, my understanding is there's something called the sort of treaty Indian identity, and those are folks who are basically sovereign natives. They're not actually American citizens. They are sovereign people, and those are the people that I know that they're looking at for some of the legal battles to be had with the government over that issue. But again, it's pretty much all native land, so it's a bigger discussion about who owns what.
And this, you said this was started in April, right? Somewhere.
Yeah, about April. Yeah.
Is that when they started building like the?
Yeah. So my understanding is that they were having issues with the company wanted to come through there, and they were supposed to consult with the local tribe.
Exactly.
They claim that they did.
Yeah.
The tribe says you really didn't, but they still signed off on it. They had the Army Corps of Engineers sign off on it. They pushed the paperwork through to make it look like they did everything they needed. And the tribes there are like, no, you didn't do that with us. And so that's where the issue started. Yeah. And then it just got more intense because that company in particular, I heard is very aggressive. Somebody who worked for them had talked to somebody else that I had heard talking about their conversation, and they're a very sort of, the way he described them was a very cowboy style ownership.
Just kind of take
and they
it.
Just push things through. Take everything. Yeah. So that's the way they do things. And they have help with the state government now.
Yeah.
So, and other state governments. So it's become more intense, And I think Obama stepped in at some point to.
Yeah, that's the part I saw, where he actually, I heard it was over with,
It was not over with.
Supposedly, yeah, in what they were putting out there.
Yeah, that is sort of the story that came out of that.
Yeah.
But the reality is he didn't put an end to it. What he did was he said, you need to stop for now, and we're going to look at the environmental impact of all of this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a stall, And so people were like, oh, he stepped in and helped us out. Well, he helped out for a little bit, but it didn't stop it.
Yeah.
Because they're still building. What he did is he simply asked them, hey, do you mind stopping? And of course not. They're not going to stop. You know, so it wasn't a definitive decision, you know. I think the government right now is in this place where they talk a lot about energy independence in the political sphere. You know, we're sick of getting our oil from the Middle East and going to the wars and all that stuff, which is true. So then their idea is like, well, we got oil up here. Well, now they're declaring war on their own people here. Yeah. You know, and it's like
corporate.
Yeah, it's the same people that were in Iraq doing the work now here domestically, and they're taking advantage of people that they think nobody cares about. So those people are fighting back, and it's connecting to all of us. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, and well, from where I've been learning or just looking, like doing a little research, is from a lot of Facebook live feeds.
Sure.
There's people out there, like on the front line, they're like recording everything that's happening, and it seems to get like, you know, they're out there, they have no weapons, they're just, you know, just defending the land, defending the water, and then you have the other side, which is like super protective of their and pushing.
Absolutely. Onward. I mean, you can see the photos that are coming out of there, you know. Well, there you go.
I did take some from online feeds. Yeah. So if you guys know where these are from, I would, if you guys can put the credit the person that took the photo. So these aren't mine again. These are just the ones I borrowed from online feeds. You know, and this one, somebody mentioned that it was a sniper out there. I'm like, I don't know, why would you need that kind of stuff? And then yesterday when I was watching, you know, they were, you know, pepper spraying and just kind of doing.
Yeah, they're using pepper spray and concussion grenades.
Yeah, just to try to get everybody off.
Yeah.
Is it the highway? Is it what highway?
There are different highways that go in and out of that territory, and so certain ones are strategic for the camps, and so the camps are trying to protect some of those. And so the police are, I mean, you can see it in those photos, you know, they're basically facing off with, this was the frontline camp, I believe, right here. And the intention, now we know, was to basically break down the frontline camp and push everybody back to the southern camp, I believe. And I mean, look, you can see it there. I mean, these guys, they're like 3 deep, and there's about 100 police officers surrounding these folks, and they have snipers set out in the distance.
It's crazy.
You know,
it's an actual battle that's gonna happen, but you know,
I mean, they've declared war on these people, and these folks are unarmed. You know,
exactly.
And they're really just praying and singing. You can hear this, you can see it when you watch these videos, but none of these videos really get out onto the mainstream media. What's interesting is there's a lot of what's called information warfare going on. Yeah. Even at the locations, because the sheriff who's in charge of this whole thing will get on the loudspeaker and basically say things like, please do not shoot us with your bows and arrows.
Yeah, you know? I saw that.
Yeah, and do not fight amongst yourselves. You know, he's saying these things because he knows there's media there, and he's playing a game. You know, he wants to paint the protesters as the aggressors, and then his cops as, you know, the victims. And a lot of people see it that way. You know, a lot of people see it that way because they think the natives are breaking the laws. Yeah. You know, and again, a conversation has to be had in this country about that issue. Is like, we're talking about the whole continent is native land. You know, there were wars, there were negotiations made over history, but this area here in particular, you know, there are ancestral burial sites in these areas, and you have bulldozers coming through and tearing this stuff up.
Yeah, I saw a video where they had, you know, they had drones. You know, the protectors, they had drones, and they were showing how the guys weren't even respecting like certain areas where it's like, you know.
No, and that's, I mean, again, it's a difference in we have two different cultures going on right there. You know, you have the American culture, you have the indigenous culture, and apparently the local government there really doesn't care. You know, it doesn't care. It cares more about the money that's getting funneled into their local government.
Yeah.
And then eventually into the police department. So they have a vested interest in protecting that pipeline.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why they're out there. And but private companies influencing governments is corrupt, even by the standards of the American system. But this is very common. You know, it's been happening since day one. So the question now is, what do we do about this? And I think a lot of people are upset, not just Native people, you know, with the elections, the way they are right now, and all that sort of the intensity of it and all the divisions that are happening, is because people know what's going on and they're pissed. So.
Well, the good thing is, you know, there's people out there sharing the info, sharing
Absolutely.
videos, sharing. So even if it was blackouts, you know, people still get that info, and then there's more people going up there, because that's what's most important, right? Just get more people to go out there.
Yeah, more people to go up there. I think the strategy is that the longer this goes on and the more you know, attention they can bring to it, there's a possibility that something can change. Now, you have different people thinking different strategies, you know, like some don't want peaceful resolution, you know, they're tired of it and they just want to go in there. And other people are like, no, we got to maintain peaceful approach, you know. So you have different groups talking about that. But right now, it's been a peaceful protest since April, and it's going to continue that way, I think, under the guidance of the elders there and everything.
Yeah.
So, and you know what you said about, again, the sort of citizen journalists that are there, you know, bringing the news out to us through social media when CNN, NBC, all those groups don't do it. That's really important. And
well, I mean, I can relate to it because, you know, I live here, but I don't know if you know it, but there's in Mexico, they censor a lot of the news, like
of course.
Like that happens out there, all like the massacres that happen.
Absolutely.
Like the 43 students, I believe, or I think there were more. You know, when it happened, like they just blacked out everything on the media. Like there was none of it on the news. But then like there was people putting hashtags and videos, and that's how we got into the media. And then, you know, eventually they had to step up and say something about it. And even to this day, they don't really know what happened to them. But you know, that's just. Yeah, like that's why I was like, you know, this is happening in Mexico, and I know Mexico a little bit more messed up down there, you know, but now we're talking here where it's the U.S.
Right.
And
you know, again, if you really, you know, I'm a history teacher, and so for a profession, and when you start looking at the bigger picture, you know, my family's from Mexico as well, like from Veracruz area, and my grandmother's from Hidalgo, and so they've been fighting there for quite a long time. Even down south, there's been pipelines that have been installed there 40 years ago, maybe longer, in Peru, where the Amazon is. Those things are pouring oil into the Amazon River, and people are fighting there too.
Seen that,
You know, Oaxaca, like that's been a battleground for a long time. So a lot of the companies, I think, because I followed politics for a long time too, is a lot of the companies have been going to, you know, so-called third and second world nations first, you know, and messing around down there because, again, people really don't pay attention to the indigenas of Amazon and, you know, the people of Oaxaca. Nobody cares about them, right? They're just Mexicans, right? Nobody cares.
Indigenous,
Right, especially the indigenas, right? In Mexico, we know, like, being indigenous is even, you know, puts you down lower.
I you know, personally
you've experienced it. Yeah,
even,
exactly. So that whole thing is starting to creep up here now.
Yeah.
It's been actually happening quite a bit in Canada.
Canada?
Yep. In fact, a lot of the fights about the oil has started up there, maybe even 10 years ago, 20 years ago. and now they're trying to extend south. So now the tribes down here are getting it. But they've been having a lot of fights up in the north for some time as well. And you never hear about that, you know?
Yeah, no. But I also saw, besides the treaty, something, Agenda 21, is that something?
So I've heard about, I don't know if it's related, honestly. Agenda 21 is something I've heard, like, kind of going through the internet for some time.
Okay.
I haven't heard about it being really a part of what's going on now.
Okay.
My feeling about a lot of that stuff is I'm sure there's quite a bit of, you know, shady stuff going on, you know, in the background, all that stuff. But I also think that most of it is right up in our faces.
Yeah.
You know, like what's happening at Standing Rock, you know, is basically a connection between big money and the government. That's been happening for a long, long time. And it doesn't need to be a conspiracy because it's real, it's happening.
Yeah, I mean,
You know,
even like you said, the conspiracy, you know, sometimes that stuff, you know, comes out to be real. Like
some of it,
that,
yeah,
like
absolutely.
the NSA thing.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
those guys were always like, oh, you know, they're watching us,
Yeah.
and then they came out with it. They're like, all right, we're watching.
We are
you.
watching.
Yeah, we're watching. You know,
Yeah.
what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
You know, watch.
And I think you have to kind of, like, that's the way things work. You know?
Yeah.
We could be watched right now. You know, we don't know. But you have to assume you are, because there's no such thing as privacy anymore, especially in the information age.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, the best cameras that they have are these. The
Yeah, I
ones
mean,
we carry.
like right now, they, you know, hey, what's up, guys?
Yeah. So we do it to ourselves, you know. But there's a trade-off, right?
Yeah.
This
it's
helps us to some degree.
spread info.
Yeah. But they can also use that to keep an eye on what we're doing, and you know they're doing that.
Yeah.
So.
And it can also work both ways, because I like on the social media, I saw a lot of people commenting negative things about, you know, the people over there at Standing Rock.
Right.
They're like, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that.
Right.
But it's not true.
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure, you know, the last thing you want is put yourself in a position where you're there to peacefully protect and not, you know, cause chaos.
Of course.
Purposely without, you know, that's your, because you said there are some that, you know, see it a certain way, and there are others, you know, it has to be through prayer and peaceful protection.
Yeah, up until a point, you know, and so as long as possible. But, you know, history has shown that sometimes things get violent, you know, and it's one of those things where I think you have to, again, I'm not advocating it, I'm just saying it's a reality in history, and so we have to understand that. And I think everybody out there really does, you know, that's why they're pushing so hard to make this a peaceful protest and or a protection. And so nobody wants violence, especially indigenous people, like, you know.
Because also they're you know, they're on the side where, you know, they're out there just on themselves, where these guys, what were they using? It was like a sound cannon.
They had a sound cannon.
I was watching the live feed, and you can hear it.
You can hear it.
Feed.
Yeah, sound cannon. I mean, they have technology. They have the resources.
Yeah.
And they were using rubber bullets.
Rubber
things
bullets.
like that. But those, you know, you can't tell me getting shot in the face with one of those is, you know, like non-lethal. You know, that's what they call it.
Yeah.
You know, and I heard a story actually of a young man who's they have horse riders out there.
Oh yeah.
And I guess the cops shot at the horse, and the shot at the rider, hit the horse. The horse had to be put down later because of the injury.
Man.
You know, like this is they talk about non-lethals.
You killed the horse.
But you can really hurt people very badly. You know, a woman had her arm broken by a baton. You know, there's all kinds of stuff going on. So it's a non-violent resistance, but the force being applied to it is very violent. It's very violent. It's a one-sided fight. But the government there wants everyone to believe that all the protectors are criminals. But again, this is what they do. This is what they do. Anytime that happens.
So, yeah. Well, yeah, like I was telling everybody, thanks for tuning in. It's about half an hour, and the Eskwilax Hour 84, where we're talking about Standing Rock and the North Dakota Access Pipeline. And we have Eric Hill. He's here, sharing his knowledge with us. And yeah, thank you guys for sharing the live feeds, sharing like all the Facebook info, the hashtags, the Instagrams, pushing it out there, pushing more info out there, just so everybody could kind of understand how it affects everybody. Today is like is a river, right, that they're trying to run it through.
The Missouri River, yeah.
They
were, they tried at first, they got pushed out. They can't do that anymore because it's obviously dangerous.
Yeah, today is that, and next 10 years from now, who knows where they're gonna try to stick it, and it's gonna affect future generations. It's gonna affect, I personally, health-wise, it's gonna affect people's health. It's like, is it Michigan where they have the water problem now?
Flint, Michigan?
Yeah, Flint.
Yeah,
Michigan.
Absolutely.
You don't have to go too far into the years to people getting poisoned by this kind of stuff. Just people trying to make money and just kind of going on with it and not caring so much about those who live in the actual area. Yeah, and so thanks, Eric. And what else? Oh, and I was reading also about how do you say it? The Sioux?
The Sioux?
The Sioux tribe?
The Sioux tribe.
The Sioux tribe.
Yeah, Sioux tribe.
And are they the ones that originally in that reservation, or?
Yeah, so the Dakotas, you have North and South Dakota.
Yeah.
You have the Sioux Nation.
The Sioux Nation.
Which is basically from my understanding that's the overall nation. And then you have Lakota, Dakotas, and you have different groups within that nation. And so you have quite a few reservations out that way. And so the Lakota people who are also being affected by this were some of the, in fact, this is an interesting tie-in if I can go into the American Indian movement. So the American Indian movement, that organization I'm a part of, actually originated in Minnesota, which also made up of a lot of the Sioux tribal people.
Yeah.
That region, that nation has a history. It's one of the only nations that has the Lakotas that has defeated the U.S. government in war. And the way they feel it, there you go, that's the flag there. The way they feel about it is, they're constantly being targeted because they're one of the last tribes who are basically trying to retain their sovereignty. And anytime you do that, the government comes down on people that want to express their sovereignty. So they've had a history of this kind of thing. So the American Indian movement started in Minnesota in 1968 with a few activists that were getting pretty much tired of the situation that their people were in. On reservations, there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of crime and things like that, and very little economic opportunities, things of that nature. So they got together and they were like, we got to do something about this. And also their culture, their traditions, their heritage was starting to fade away because of incoming religions and whatnot. So, and just American culture in general. So their whole thing was to revive and protect their traditional culture, Native American culture. And it started in that region. And so in '68, they got together. In the '70s, they went ahead and basically, prior to that, they actually worked with the Black Panthers and other civil rights groups for minority folks. They would come together and basically support each other. And in the '70s, they went ahead and occupied Alcatraz Island, right off the coast of Cali here, by San Francisco, because I forgot what date it was shut down, but once it was shut down, the government declared it like excess land or excess property. And there's an old treaty that said any excess property or land, federal land, was to be given to the native people. But those treaties had never been honored. So this group of activists went over there and occupied it for quite some time and struggled there. You know, eventually they had to they were removed, but it brought attention to Native American issues. And ever since then, you know, there have been other things that this organization has done. Like there was a walk across the United States, a Trail of Broken Treaties, it was called, from San Francisco to Washington, D.C. to bring attention.
And what year was that?
I think it was, I want to say, after Alcatraz. So it was like, let me see here, 1972. And that was a pretty big event at the time. And ever since then, this organization has sort of made itself into a civil rights organization for Native issues in particular. But we join up with other groups, you know, in solidarity. And we're doing that even now. Black Lives Matter, you know, we're still doing that. So it's an interesting history in that part of the country, you know, and it's basically starting up again.
Yeah.
In the same part of the country, you know. So it's just an interesting sort of historical perspective on that, you know.
And you said there's different chapters, right?
There are different chapters. So, and they're all across the United States. The organization itself split into two different main groups, you know. So each of those groups has its own chapters. But the National American Indian Movement has chapters all across the United States, and one of them is here in Southern California, which is the one I'm part of.
Okay. So. And how long have you been in part of that?
So I just got involved in AIM at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
A lot of us that are in the chapter currently are kind of new to the chapter, because there was the chapter kind of like stopped operating and then it restarted.
Yeah. And
so, yeah, I started at the beginning of the year, and it's been very intense, especially with Standing Rock coming up. So.
But before you were always involved in.
So prior to that, yeah, I've always been into sort of indigenous culture. You know, I myself, you know, I come from a Mexican background, and my father's also from the Philippines, so I have a Polynesian background and Asian background. You know, I've always been aware of my Mexican heritage, but as you know, like especially those of us who live in the United States, we're cut off from that history quite a bit, you know, and so it's taken a while for some of us to figure out who we really are, you know.
Yeah, even I'm still looking for exactly.
Right, and I think a lot of us, you know, they call us Chicanos.
Yeah.
We're in this process, you know, but we definitely have indigenous heritage, you know. And what's interesting is the northern tribes are now starting to realize, oh yeah, you know, the people in Mexico are not just Mexican. You know, we're all kinds of things. You know, and you speak your own language, you know, Zapoteco language. I mean, you know, there's a connection.
Yeah, because it just goes back to, you know, I was born in Oaxaca,
right.
So I was raised, and I saw, you know, over there's a huge difference, you know.
Yes.
We used to farm, well, my family, you know, they were farmers, and once they came over here, it's a city, and then like, they're like, oh, well, now you can't speak this language, you have to speak this other one. Which was Spanish, and they're like, no, you can't speak Spanish, you have to speak English.
Right.
So, you know, I was just going through one through the other and not really understanding, not keeping what it meant to be, you know, from Oaxaca, speak Zapoteco and be a Zapotec. I don't even know if that's the correct term, or a Zapoteca.
Right, and again, this is part of the colonization situation that we're in, right? Like a lot of us, I mean, I wasn't even that close to Mexico, you know. My grandmother was, but that's like 2 generations out. So I'm even farther away trying to learn about that, you know. And we started a Nahuatl classes because that's actually the home language of my grandmother. So Nahuatl, yeah. Nahuatl from Hidalgo area, Veracruz and those areas. So, but Mexico has like tons of languages.
Yeah.
Zapoteco, Nahuatl, you know, Mixteco, like there's all kinds of different things going on over there. So, but unfortunately, I think, you know, when you're Mexican American, like you said, you have to, and you're here, you're colonized twice, maybe even 3 times,
much,
you know?
3 times, yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, it's, you're first you're Mexican, then you have to become American, when really you have indigenous heritage. You know?
No, even over there, over there, you know, you were seen different.
Yeah.
Like, you go to the city and, you know, they will look at you different.
Yeah.
And it's like your own raza, your own people, that for some reason they think you're, I guess, in a way less. And they're like, you know, oh, he speaks a different language. He doesn't speak Spanish correctly, so he's less. And I've tried, you know, educating others from over there or see it that, in my perspective, in that way. And they're like, no, you're just crazy. You're just paranoid, you know.
Well,
I'm just, you know, I'm just trying to understand what exactly, what am I, or, you know, where you what come exactly, from. You know.
And that's the, you know, again, from a history perspective, the casta system and the Spanish casta system really set the culture, you know, like there's even a painting, I think, at LACMA of the casta system, and it starts, you know, with certain combinations of parents and their value. And it goes all the way down to, you know, African, and they're like the lowest, you know, in that system. So the darker you are, the worse you are, the lighter you are, the better you are, you know. And so that's the colonization that was established even, you know, 500 plus years ago. And I mean, you have even, I have students whose families are straight from Guatemala or whatever.
No, that's where I'm, you know, that's where I'm coming from, where we're straight from over there. And, you know, we were lucky enough to start living over here and start kind of seeing things in another perspective, and also kind of achieve what we came here for, which is make a better life.
Better life, absolutely.
Because that's, you know, that was the goal. But as I'm going now, I'm trying to understand also where I'm coming from, like not to forget where it is.
That's important.
And I'm the more I learn, the more I want to teach the next. Like my sister, she just had her daughter, and she's teaching her daughter Zapoteco.
Oh,
you know,
that's beautiful.
She wants us to learn it, not just forget. All of that. Because my other sibling, she understands it, but she doesn't speak it.
She doesn't speak it,
And so now I'm at a point where, like, you know, it's important to teach the little one.
Absolutely.
That it's, you know, they talk to her in Zapoteco language, so she grows up speaking it, and that way she can still remember where
she comes from. The roots.
Exactly.
And I think another important component to that is, especially right now when you have such, you know, the discussion about immigration, and you have all these people saying, you know, oh, these are illegals and all these names that they call people, and they call us, and it's like, what they do not understand is that our people have been here for a long time, and even people from the south have been moving up and down, you know, trading and going to different places for thousands of years. There was no border there. We didn't, you know, the indigenous worldview does not see borders, and I think that's why it's important to teach the youngsters about this. You know, because if they forget that, then they create these, like, well, I'm this and you're that, and I'm better than you. You know, these ideas about superiority or whatever. Again, that goes back to casta system thinking. That needs to go away. That was never here. And it's dangerous, you know.
But where we stand now is, you know, unfortunately, this is how it's been set up.
Yeah.
But you know, wherever you're able to take a stand, you gotta do it, and that's what we go back to the North Dakota
Absolutely.
pipeline.
That's right.
You know, they're able to protect it as much as possible. Well, the whole goal is for them to just stop building it. You know?
Yeah, that is the goal. That's going to be a difficult challenge, you know, because again, the system is built on, you know, profit and money. And these corporations having, especially now, they have even more power.
Yeah.
You know, they're legally able to just give money straight out and be like, here, we want you to do stuff for us, and then sure, we'll give you the cops. You know. I mean,
that's one of the main things people are talking about, how they have like a whole squad of, like, you know, all those guys right there, and a lot of them are from other states, right? They're not they're not like from that one particular.
Yeah, because Morton County Sheriff's Department doesn't have enough people for it, so they need to bring people in, and they did. You know, the irony is, I saw something online that said like, it was the Morton County Sheriff's Department, and they were showing an image. I wish I brought it, but it's showing an image of where all the people are coming from, and how many in each state were arrested.
Yeah.
You've seen that?
Yeah.
And then they would write, you know, these are outside agitators, and well, they're bringing people in too from the outside.
Yeah.
And they're talking smack about this. I mean, this is what people do when you have trouble.
You get together.
You bring your friends.
Yeah.
You know, this is normal. So, but they're doing anything they can to make it like, you know, we're the bad guys.
Yeah, exactly. They're painting a different picture.
That's right.
Where, you know, again, you know, the media keeps calling them protesters, but it's protectors.
Protectors, yeah.
You know, if you guys don't realize, they're protecting the water,
That's right.
protecting the future. But
Yep, that's exactly right. That's the bottom line.
And yeah, we're about 8 minutes before. So again, you want to remind people what they can do, you know, if they're not able to go make it out there.
Sure. So I think one of the most important things you guys can do is, you know, keep watching the feeds that are coming through people that are out there right now, and then repost that. You know, make sure those are being put out there every day. The mainstream media is only telling a small portion of the story. So make sure that you become sort of the media for what's going on, for what's actually going on. So that's one of the major things that anybody with a phone or a computer can do. The other thing is, you know, our organization suggests that if you want to make financial donations, that it goes straight to Sacred Stone Camp and the Red Warrior Camp. Just because we've checked those places out ourselves, and we're pretty confident that when the money gets there, it doesn't, it's accounted for and it doesn't just kind of disappear. If you have friends that are going, you know, send them with stuff. A lot of times what the camp needs is not necessarily more supplies, but they do need maybe gas cards, gift cards, you know, that you can kind of use at any shop. Things like that, where they can actually go buy the supplies themselves that they need on site. And it also reduces the loads on your trip, so you don't have to carry so much stuff with you. You just have money, you know, put onto a card, and then that's what you give them. They are doing winterization, which means that they're trying to keep their tents and everything nice and warm. So again, that money will help for that, and that's really important. And the most important thing that you can do is try to go. Try to go and support, physically be there. So those are the most important things I would suggest.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, the more info, the better. I just want to thank Rene Two Ravens for connecting us, and I forgot Jane Medina. I believe that's, sorry if that's, you know, her name. It's just, I'm bad with names, but thanks to her, she connected with me she connected me with Two Raven.
Right.
And then he said he for event, something happened up there, and he was able to come, and then he was able to connect me with Eric here. So thank you guys for making the connection, and just keep spreading the feeds, the hashtags, social media. If the regular media isn't putting it out there, make sure you guys do. And if your friends are going out there, send them with supplies, send them with, as he's mentioning, gift cards. And if you guys know of other people heading up there, you guys can share it on the Eskwilax Hour page on Facebook, and then we'll spread it. We'll also put it on Instagram, we'll spread it. And Raul from Mictlan, he's also one of the guys that was talking about the pipeline the other day. He's also, thanks to him, I got to learn a little bit more before today.
Good.
Yeah, man, thank you for coming by and sharing the knowledge with us. Again, I was telling you before, like last week, I had no idea that this was going on. And as I started watching the feed, watching, more info, and of course, you kind of do have to look through what makes sense, because some of it, they're trying to make it that the protectors are the ones doing all the chaos, which is just not. That's not the whole story. There's two sides to it, and one side, of course, you can see is using a little bit more force than the other, and
a lot more.
So you have to use your eyes and use your head, use your brain to actually understand the whole picture. And on their side that they're coming from is like, it's not just right now to protect that. It's just to make like a statement, also a stand where in the future, like future pipelines, they don't think about it to run it through another territory or another location where they're like, nobody's gonna care.
That's right.
But now at Standing Rock, everybody there cares, and there's people that go in from other states just to make that stand, just to let you know that you can't do that. So if you have any other last words.
Just a couple of things that I thought about while you were speaking was the other option is attending some of the local rallies and stuff like that that you can get a hold of on Facebook. Specifically, you can go to AIM SoCal Community on Facebook to kind of check up on updates. March and Rally Los Angeles is another organization that puts a lot of good stuff together. And the other thing that he spoke of, in terms of using your discernment with information, a lot of some information does come from the police itself and local newspapers, which are not friendly to the protectors at all. So just be careful about that. A couple of those are Morton County Sheriff's and Bismarck Tribune.
Thank you for watching the Eskwilax Hour. She once said my name. Now she won't